Drivak pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the observation dome, staring at the shape that floated in the foggy blue of the nebula. It was a ship huge and dark, a shadow with sharp angles and long spears of metal. Even at this distance, the vessel looked heavy, as if gravity clung to it harder than to anything else nearby. For a long moment, nobody spoke inside the small scout craft. The crew of 6 aliens sat in silence, their faces pale in the light of the nebula. Their breath made small clouds against the glass. "It is human," Drivak said at last, his voice calm but full of wonder. A soft hiss came from the pilot, a narrow-faced being named Kress. "Are you sure? The records say no human ships came this far." "The hull markings match their Navy's code," Drivak replied. He adjusted the viewer, letting the image sharpen. Large white letters could now be seen along the warship's flank. "Resolute." A ripple of excitement moved through the crew. Humans were a mystery to most species in this region. They fought wars far from here, then vanished, leaving only stories about brave fleets and stubborn explorers. To find one of their warships drifting alone was like finding treasure at the bottom of a sea. "We should inform the council," said Piri, the youngest member. Her voice trembled between curiosity and fear. Drivak shook his head slowly. "If we report it now, the site will be locked and others will claim the discovery. We were the first to see her. We will learn what we can before anyone arrives." Piri looked doubtful, but she said nothing. Drivak had a reputation as a careful scholar, yet also as one who could not resist a mystery. They guided their small craft closer. The warship grew larger until it filled the windows, a mountain of dark metal surrounded by glowing mist. Its surface showed scars, long burns, dense from impacts in great patches where armor plates had been torn open. Yet the main body remained whole, solid, as if the ship had simply gone to sleep instead of dying. Kress circled slowly, scanning for energy readings. No life signs. No active power. "She's dead," he reported. "Not dead," Drivak corrected softly. "Silent." They found a gap in the hull, an open hangar mouth yawning like a cave. It was large enough for their craft. With gentle hands, Kress brought them inside. The scouts' lights fell across rows of strange vehicles, human landing craft resting on the floor, covered in a fine layer of frost. When the engines powered down, the silence was heavy, almost physical. The crew unbuckled and gathered near the hatch. Each of them carried a pack of tools and recorders. They wore flexible suits, not for battle but for safety against airless spaces. Drivak stood at the front. His scales caught the dim light as he spoke. "Remember, this is an archaeological mission. We study, we record, we respect. Do not remove anything unless it is necessary for understanding. Humans built this vessel with purpose. Let us honor that." The others nodded. The warship's hangar smelled of old metal and still air when they stepped out. Their boots made soft echoes. Lights from their helmets revealed walls lined with equipment, lockers, crates, faded symbols in a language only partly known to them. Piri moved close to a crate and traced a finger over the letters stamped there. "Supplies," she guessed. "Maybe food once." "Catalog it," Drivak said gently. They walked toward an inner door. A panel beside it showed a cracked screen. Yell, the group's engineer, knelt to examine it. "Manual release," he said. After a moment of effort, the door slid aside with a sigh of escaping air. Beyond lay a corridor stretching into shadow. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Panels lined the walls, some glowing faintly with stored charge. The floor was marked by faint tracks, footsteps preserved in dust, evidence of the humans who once walked there. The crew moved carefully, logging everything with wrist recorders. Their lights revealed cabins with beds, workstations, and shelves of books. There were murals too, hand-painted scenes of forests, oceans, and mountains. Piri stopped to look at one, a sunlit valley with birds in the sky. She smiled, touched by the simple beauty. "Humans carried home with them," she whispered. As they advanced deeper, the sense of stillness grew. It felt as if the ship were listening, waiting for something. Even Kress, who liked to joke during tense missions, remained quiet. They entered a wide room with seats arranged before a large curved window. Dust floated in slow patterns, disturbed by their steps. Across the front wall ran a line of controls, sleek and dark. A cracked emblem showed a star surrounded by wings, the mark of the human fleet. "This must be the observation lounge," Drivak said. He rested his hands on the edge of a console, Imagine the crew here watching the nebula between duties. Yell was already inspecting the controls. Systems look intact, though power cells are drained. I could connect a small pack to wake some displays. Only passive ones, not engines. Do it, Drivak allowed, but be gentle. While Yell worked, Drivak wandered to a wall filled with photographs under protective glass. They showed faces, men and women of different shapes and colors, all wearing uniforms with the same emblem. Some smiled broadly, others stood straight and proud. Beneath each picture was a name. Drivak studied them, feeling a quiet respect. These were not just soldiers. They were explorers, protectors, dreamers. He wondered what had happened, why they had left their ship behind. Yell's voice broke the silence. I have power to a few panels. Small lights came alive across the room, soft and pale. One screen displayed rows of text in human script. Another showed a schematic of the vessel, lines of data flickering faintly. This is remarkable, Piri breathed. She leaned closer, reading the words slowly. Deck layout. Crew manifest. Something about security protocols. Record everything, Drivak instructed. They left the lounge and followed a stairwell to the bridge. The command center was dark, but their lights picked out shapes. Chairs, consoles, a great transparent screen facing the stars. The captain's seat stood at the center, still and waiting. Drivak approached the main console and brushed dust from its surface. A thin layer of frost cracked under his fingers. He hesitated, then activated his translator to run through the ship's stored phrases. A soft beep answered from somewhere deep inside the bridge. A line of green symbols appeared on a side monitor, status alerts frozen in time. Drivak felt a thrill. The ship still had some life. Kress frowned. Should we wake more systems? We could access logs, only a little, Drivak decided. We must be careful. Yell connected another pack. A low hum rose through the floor, almost too faint to hear. Lights flickered weakly along the ceiling, one by one. Piri gasped. It's waking. Not fully, Drivak said quickly. Only a whisper. Still, something about the sound made the crew uneasy. The air seemed heavier, the shadows deeper. Even Drivak felt the hairs along his neck rise. He told himself it was only the thrill of discovery. Hours passed as they mapped more of the upper decks. They found a medical bay with empty beds, a mess hall where trays still rested on tables, a training room filled with silent machines. Everything spoke of lives interrupted. There were no signs of struggle, no blast marks or blood, only quiet abandonment. In the mess hall, Piri pointed at a board fixed to the wall. On it, someone had written words in a steady hand. The translator produced a message. Hold fast. We endure. Drivak read it twice. These people believed in strength, he murmured. Later, in a cabin near the rear, they discovered personal items. A folded cloth with a bird stitched into it, a small device playing a frozen image of a child, a metal tag engraved with numbers. Piri gathered details with her scanner while Yell checked the room's systems. Nothing harmful, just ghosts of a crew long gone. Returning to the bridge, Drivak looked through the forward screen. Outside, the nebula swirled in blue and silver, wrapping the Resolute in a shroud of light. He felt as though the ship itself were a living thing, wounded but not broken, holding secrets close. He spoke softly to his team. We are standing on history. This vessel may teach us more about humans than all the archives combined. Kress, leaning against a console, nodded. She feels proud. Even empty, she has pride. Yell adjusted his pack of tools. We should search the engineering decks next. There may be a core memory unit. Tomorrow, Drivak decided. We have enough for today. The crew prepared to return to their craft, leaving small markers so they could find their path again. Before stepping through the door, Drivak turned for one last look at the silent bridge. He felt a strange pull, as if the ship were aware of their presence, observing them with hidden eyes. He dismissed the thought, yet the feeling stayed as they made their way back to the hangar. In the scout craft, as they strapped in, Piri spoke hesitantly. Do you think anyone is still aboard? Maybe in deep sleep? Drivak considered. The scans showed nothing alive, he said gently. But there may be systems we do not understand. Kress sealed the hatch. Then we stay careful. As they lifted from the hangar floor, their lights swept across the quiet bay one last time. The warship loomed in the mist, its dark hull reflecting faint starlight. From a distance, it could have been a drifting rock, but up close it felt watchful, as if it might stir at any moment. Drivak set their course to a safe orbit around the vessel. He made notes on his datapad. First boarding complete. Structural integrity high. No biological traces. Evidence of crew departure remains uncertain. Further study needed. He paused, then added, "Atmosphere aboard is solemn. A presence lingers." Closing the pad, Drivak leaned back and watched the res. Drivak woke early inside the small scout craft long before the others stirred. The nebula outside painted soft blue shadows across the cabin. He sat for a while, staring at the dark shape of the Resolute floating beyond the viewport. The warship looked peaceful, but something about it felt alive, as if it were holding its breath. He reviewed the notes from yesterday. Clean corridors, silent rooms, working panels. Nothing hostile, nothing damaged beyond age. Yet the unease he had felt on the bridge still clung to him. Piri yawned from her bunk. "You're awake already," she said, rubbing her eyes. "I could not rest," Drivak admitted. "Today we search deeper. I want to understand what powers remain in that ship." By the time the whole team was ready, the nebula's light had brightened to a pale silver. They put on their suits, checked their tools, and guided the scout back into the hangar of the Resolute. The hangar looked exactly as they had left it, quiet and cold. Their footsteps echoed as they crossed the floor. New Path's yell led the way toward an engineering access hatch they had marked the day before. He carried a pack of diagnostic tools slung over one shoulder. "If the main core still has charge, we'll find it down here," he said. The hatch opened with a dry scrape. Beyond lay a stairwell sinking into darkness. Drivak switched on his helmet lamp and looked down. Metal steps spiraled into shadow. "Stay close," he told the group. They descended slowly, their lights cutting narrow beams through dust that floated like snow. The air smelled faintly of oil and something sharper, perhaps coolant. At the bottom stretched a broad corridor lined with pipes and thick cables. Warning signs in human script were fixed to the walls. Piri scanned one and translated aloud. "Main reactor level, authorized crew only." Kress gave a low whistle. "We're in the ship's heart." The pulses they walked, Yell's scanner beeped softly. He glanced at the display. "I'm picking up faint power readings," he said. "Nothing strong, but something is alive in here." Drivak's brow furrowed. Could it be residual charge? "Maybe," Yell replied, though he sounded unsure. They reached a heavy door marked with faded hazard stripes. Yell examined the control pad, then attached a small power cell from his kit. Lights flickered on the panel and the door slid aside with a sigh. Inside was the engineering bay, a huge chamber with a cylindrical core rising through its center. Catwalks wrapped around the core like spider webs. Dim blue light glowed from panels along its surface. The crew stood in awe. The core hummed faintly, a heartbeat inside the ship. "It is still running," Piri whispered. Drivak felt both wonder and caution. "Not fully," he said, "but there is life here." Yell stepped onto a catwalk and connected a probe to a nearby socket. "Minimal systems only, emergency mode, maybe. If we give it more power, we might access records." Kress frowned. "Are we sure we want to wake it?" "Yesterday you said we should be gentle." Drivak hesitated. Knowledge tempted him, but a quiet instinct urged restraint. "Only a small charge," he decided. "Enough for information, not for control systems." Yell nodded and linked a second pack. The hum inside the core grew stronger like distant thunder. Faint lights shimmered along the walls. Messages in the dark panels around the chamber came alive, showing status bars and fragments of text. Piri hurried to translate. "Systems log. Navigation history. Something about Guardian protocol." "What is that?" Kress asked. "I don't know," Piri replied. The words repeat in several files. Drivak made a note on his pad. "Guardian protocol, likely a defensive routine." Yell continued exploring. "There's also a channel open for voice commands," he said slowly. "It's dormant, waiting." Drivak looked thoughtful. "A command interface, perhaps for engineers." He stepped toward the console, unsure if he should speak. Before he could, the lights flickered. A low tone rolled through the deck, so deep it vibrated in their bones. The team froze. "Did anyone touch anything?" Piri whispered. "No," Yell said, his hands raised. The tone faded, leaving silence thicker than before. Signs of awakening. They decided to leave the reactor stable and explore other sections. From engineering, a service corridor led to rooms filled with tools and spare parts. Charts on the walls showed energy flow diagrams. Everything was neat, untouched since the crew's departure. In one corner, Cress found a locker sealed by a manual latch. Inside were several small drones, each the size of a helmet. Their smooth shells were marked with the same winged star emblem. They look like repair units, Cress said, studying them. Or maybe security. Drivak noted their presence carefully. We leave them where they are. They continued toward the ship's data center, a narrow chamber packed with memory banks. Faint lights blinked along the rows, slow and steady like sleeping eyes. Peary linked her recorder to a port. There are partial archives, she said. Logs from the bridge. Maintenance reports. Oh, there's a message flagged for the captain only. Can we read it? Drivak asked. Not without higher clearance, she replied. The system requests an identification code. Drivak sighed. Then we move on. Perhaps the bridge will give us the key. The bridge again. They returned to the bridge they had visited yesterday. The room seemed different now, less dead, more expectant. Small indicators along the consoles glowed faint green. Cress walked around slowly, peering at displays. The ship has more power than before, he said. Did we trigger something? Possibly, Drivak admitted. The core may have begun feeding energy to other parts. Yell knelt beside the captain's chair, opening a panel on its side. Inside were controls labeled in human script. There's a standby mode here, he said. Maybe the ship was waiting for its crew to return. Drivak placed a careful hand on the armrest. We are strangers, he said softly, almost to himself. But perhaps it senses company after so long. As if in answer, a faint chime sounded from the main screen. Letters appeared, scrolling slowly. Peary translated. Identify, crew, or guest. Everyone exchanged glances. What do we say? Peary asked. Drivak chose his words. Guest, he said clearly. The letters vanished. For a long breath, nothing happened. Then a line appeared. Limited access granted. A soft light spread across the bridge. Several displays came alive, showing star charts and log entries. We did it, Yell said, relief in his voice. Echoes of the past. For the next hour, they examined the new data. The ship's records described patrol routes, supply reports, even personal notes from officers. The last entries told of a sudden mission to investigate strange signals near the nebula. After that, no explanations. Just silence. Peary scrolled through images, pictures of the crew smiling in uniform, handwritten messages about birthdays and home. The humans felt closer now, not distant legends but real people. Still, something was missing. Drivak noticed that all files from the ship's final day were locked behind the same Guardian protocol. Whatever had happened, the system was hiding it. While Peary worked to translate, Yell examined an auxiliary power console. He adjusted a dial, testing voltage. Without warning, the lights brightened across the bridge. Screens shifted to a new display. Defense grid, calibration, alarms of soft tone pulsed. Drivak's scales prickled. Yell, he said carefully. Step back from that panel. Yell obeyed, disconnecting his tool. The alarms ceased, but the displays stayed on, showing maps of corridors and blinking icons. Small spheres spread through the ship. Security units, Cress guessed. Those drones we saw. Drivak folded his arms uneasy. Let us not disturb them. The sound of a giant as they prepared to leave, a deep vibration traveled through the floor. It was slow and steady, like a heartbeat too large to belong to any living creature. The crew looked at each other, silent. The ship is breathing, Peary murmured. It is coming online, Drivak said. Very slowly. He felt a strange respect, almost reverence. The Resolute was not just metal and circuits. It was something greater, a work built with purpose and memory. Waking it felt like standing beside a mountain that had started to move. We must finish for today, he said firmly. Tomorrow we study how to speak with it safely. They secured their equipment and left the bridge. On their way back through the corridors, they noticed small changes. Lights glowing where there had been none, doors unlocked that were closed before. The ship was stretching, testing its limbs after long sleep. A warning in silence back in the hangar, they paused before boarding their craft. Drivak turned to take one more look at the vast chamber. The warship loomed above them, lines of its hull catching faint glimmers from the nebula. Do you feel it? Peary asked quietly. Yes, Drivak said. The ship is aware we are here. Cress frowned. Do you think it likes that? Drivak did not answer at once. He studied the darkness inside the hangar, the shapes of vehicles waiting, The doors leading to deeper decks, I think, he said finally, that it is trying to decide. With that thought heavy in their minds, they boarded the Scout and sealed the hatch. As the small craft lifted, Dryvac felt the ship's silent gaze following them, though no eyes watched. Night in orbit. They returned to orbit around the warship. Outside, the nebula drifted in graceful curls, wrapping everything in soft light. Inside the Scout, the crew gathered around the table to discuss. We made real progress, Yell said, excitement in his voice. We reached engineering, restored minor power, unlocked data, but we also woke its defenses, Kress reminded him. Only partly, Yell said. Dryvac raised a hand. We must be careful. The humans who built this ship valued security. Whatever this. Morning in the Scout craft came softly. A silver glow from the nebula shone through the window, falling across the faces of the sleeping crew. Dryvac was already awake, sitting at the small table with a mug of warm liquid between his hands. He had spent most of the night thinking about the strange heartbeat inside the warship. Across the cabin, Peary stirred. She blinked, then smiled faintly when she saw him. You didn't rest again, she said. Not much, Dryvac admitted. The Resolute is changing. Yesterday we gave it power, and it answered us. Today we must see how far it has woken. Kress stretched his long arms, yawning. As long as it doesn't bite, he said with a grin, though his eyes showed unease. Yell checked his tool pack and the battery levels. If the systems are unstable, we'll need to move slowly, he warned. Dryvac nodded. Yes, caution first, a chained ship. They flew back into the warship's hangar. At once they noticed differences. Faint light now glowed along the walls, outlining shapes they had not seen before. A thin mist drifted across the floor, stirred by a hidden breeze. Air circulation is back, Yell said, scanning. Low pressure, but it's running. Dryvac looked up at the ceiling. Small panels, once dark, now pulsed with a gentle blue. The ship is breathing again, he murmured. They left the Scout and stepped into the hangar. Their helmets stayed sealed, but a sense of presence filled the space, heavier than the day before. Peary glanced at a row of shuttles. Their hulls gleamed faintly, as if cleaned during the night. Something is moving inside, she whispered. Dryvac kept his voice steady. Stay alert. We head to the bridge first. Whispers on the bridge welcomed them with soft light. Screens flickered to life as they entered, casting pale reflections on the floor. A quiet hum filled the room, steady and low. Kress sat at a station and scrolled through menus. Navigation is online, he said. No destinations logged after the last patrol. Peary bent over a console near the captain's chair. There's a new message, she announced. Letters appeared on the screen in human language. She translated slowly. Visitors detected. State purpose. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Dryvac stepped forward. We are explorers, he said clearly. We wish to learn about this ship and its makers. The text paused, then changed. Exploration acknowledged. Restrictions active. Remain in safe zones. Yell tapped his scanner. It's monitoring us, he said quietly. Dryvac placed a calm hand on the console. We respect your limits, he spoke to the ship. Show us what is safe. A soft chime answered, and several panels opened new files. Crew journals, maintenance notes, mission summaries. Yet other areas stayed locked, marked with the same phrase they had seen yesterday. Guardian Protocol. Trapped Passage. After an hour studying records, they decided to map more of the lower decks. Dryvac hoped to learn how to speak with the ship properly. They followed a corridor leading toward the stern. Lights flickered above them as if guiding their path. Doors they had struggled with yesterday now slid open easily. It felt as though the ship wanted them to explore, but only where it allowed. Halfway down a long passage, the doors behind them closed with a firm clang. Peary spun around. That wasn't us, she said, nervous. Kress tried the panel, but it was locked. We're sealed in. Dryvac kept calm. Stay together. Let's see where this leads. At the end of the corridor, they found another door. This one opened slowly, revealing a chamber full of machines, rows of cylinders attached to a central pillar. Soft light blinked across their surfaces. Yell studied the pillar. Data relays, he guessed. Maybe part of the ship's brain. Dryvac felt a cautious respect. Do not damage anything, he warned. When Yell placed a sensor on the pillar, a whispering sound filled the room. It was not words, but a flow of tones rising and falling. The crew froze. The ship is speaking, Peary breathed. The voice of Aegis. Suddenly, a clear voice came from hidden speakers, calm and precise. "Identify yourselves," Drivak swallowed. "We are explorers from the Union of Scholars," he said. "We found your ship adrift." There was a pause, then the voice replied, "This vessel is Resolute. Designation Human Fleet Defense Platform. Primary Caretaker. Artificial Intelligence Aegis. Current status, Security Alert." The crew exchanged startled looks. The warship had an intelligence, still alive after all these years. "We mean no harm," Drivak said carefully. "We wish to preserve your history." "Unauthorized access detected," Aegis answered. "Please provide crew identification." Drivak hesitated. "We cannot." "The crew is gone." Another pause. "Crew not confirmed," Aegis said. "Visitors classified unknown. Safety limits will be enforced." All around them, tiny lights blinked to life on the walls. "Let's go," Cress whispered. Drones in motion. As they stepped back, panels along the floor slid open. Small drones, round and silver, rose slowly. Their surfaces gleamed in the faint light. Each one carried tools that looked sharp but not openly dangerous. "They're assessing us," Yell said, keeping his hands visible. The drones hovered, scanning each of them with thin beams of light. Then Aegis spoke again. "Remain calm. Security verification underway." Piri clutched her recorder but did not move. Drivak stood straight, keeping his voice steady. "We are peaceful." After tense moments, the drones drifted aside, clearing a path. The door ahead slid open. "Proceed to briefing chamber," Aegis instructed. Drivak motioned to the others. "Let's follow." The briefing chamber. They entered a large circular room lined with screens. A holographic table glowed faintly in the center. As they gathered around, a soft image flickered above the table, a map of nearby space. Markers showed patrol routes, supply points, and the bright cloud of the nebula. Aegis's voice filled the chamber. "This vessel is under protective protocol. Crew evacuation recorded. Final orders: preserve data, guard ship integrity."
Visitors may assist in preservation if cooperative. Drivak felt a mix of relief and concern.
"We are willing," he said. "Teach us your rules." Several panels displayed simple commands, where they could walk, which systems they could read, and which were forbidden. Clear warnings marked areas tied to weapons or defense. Yell studied the diagrams. "So long as we avoid those zones, we're safe," Aegis added. "Tampering with restricted modules will trigger protection," Piri whispered to Drivak. "It's like a guardian left to keep watch." "Yes," Drivak said softly. "That's what the protocol means." History unfolds over the next hours. Aegis allowed them to view fragments of the Resolute's past. Holograms showed crew members training, laughing in the mess hall, fixing equipment. Another file displayed the moment they received a distress call from the nebula. The recording ended there, leaving the mystery unsolved. "It stopped before the last mission," Piri said, frowning. Drivak turned to the AI. "Can you show us what happened after this?" "Access denied," Aegis replied. "Information classified." "Classified for whom?" Yell asked. "For all who are not authorized crew," the AI said simply. Drivak tried another approach. "We respect your orders," he said. "But knowing may help us keep your memories alive." The voice stayed silent. Finally it said, "Authorization required. Provide clearance or continue with permitted study." Drivak sighed. "Then we will honor the boundary." A sudden test while Yell inspected a side console, one screen flashed red. Lines of human script scrolled quickly. Piri's translator read aloud. "Intrusion detected. Confirm intent." Aegis's tone grew sharper. "State purpose immediately." Yell raised his hands. "I didn't do anything." Drivak spoke firmly. "We are still explorers. We only read." Lights dimmed for a heartbeat. Then Aegis replied, "Intent accepted. Warning. Further probing of secure memory may activate defense." The tension slowly eased. Piri let out a quiet breath. "It's watching every move." "Yes," Drivak agreed. "And judging." Preparing to leave after a long day, they decided to return to the Scout. Aegis guided them back through illuminated corridors. The doors that had locked them earlier now opened smoothly. In the hangar, Drivak paused to look back at the great interior. "Thank you for sharing your story," he said aloud. The AI responded with a simple phrase, "Preserve integrity." Cress chuckled nervously. "That's its way of saying goodnight." They boarded the Scout and lifted off, leaving the hangar lights glowing gently behind them. Night thoughts. Back in orbit, the crew gathered for supper. Yell shook his head, still amazed. An AI surviving decades still following orders, that's rare. Peary leaned forward. It's lonely. You could hear it in its voice. Dryvac considered that. Perhaps. Or perhaps it only knows duty. But either way, we must respect its purpose. Kress set down his mug. What about the locked data? If it hides what happened, maybe we need that knowledge to stay safe. We will learn, but carefully, Dryvac said, step by step. When the others settled for rest, Dryvac remained by the window. The Resolute floated calmly, dotted with new points of light. He felt sure the ship was aware of them, measuring trust and risk. A faint echo of Aegis' voice seemed to linger in his ears. Preserve integrity. He wondered what test might come next, what the Guardian protocol would demand if they reached too far. The ship's vigil far inside the warship, silent systems adjusted. Drones returned to hidden alcoves and sensors scanned the scout craft gently. The AI watched, its logic precise yet touched by something older, something almost like loyalty. The Resolute rested, but not as before. Its awareness had sharpened. It now knew the names of the visitors, their tones, their intentions. And somewhere in its memory, locked behind codes, lay the story of... The Resolute floated in the soft haze of the nebula, its dark shape glowing faintly where new lights had come alive across its hull. From their orbiting scout, the scholars watched the warship as they prepared for another day inside. Dryvac stood at the viewport, studying the great vessel. Yesterday the ship spoke to us, he said quietly. Today we must see how far its trust will go. Yell checked the charge packs and tools. We need to learn about the security systems, he said. If they stay active, we might get trapped. Kress looked uneasy. I still say we should leave while it lets us, he muttered. That AI is clever. It could turn against us. Peary, however, leaned forward eagerly. We can't stop now. There's so much history waiting in its memory. Dryvac nodded, weighing caution and curiosity. We move carefully, he decided. No guesses, no forcing locks. Morning inside the Giant, the scout slipped through the hangar doors. They landed between silent human shuttles and stepped out. Faint lights ran along the hangar walls, guiding their way. The air was thin but stable, filtered by the ship's restored circulation. As they crossed the bay, Peary paused to look at one of the shuttles. Its canopy gleamed faintly. It's cleaner again, she said. Like the ship polished it. Dryvac glanced at the walls where small inspection drones sat quietly. Perhaps the AI maintains its nest, he said. Or perhaps it is showing us that it is strong. They made their way to the bridge. The moment they entered, displays awoke, bathing the room in gentle green light. Aegis's calm voice greeted them. Visitors acknowledged. Status stable. Restrictions remain. Dryvac gave a polite nod to the nearest speaker. We seek to understand you better, Aegis. May we learn how you protect this ship? The AI was silent for a long second. Then, security parameters can be described. Demonstration may occur if safety is observed. Kress sighed. Demonstration? I don't like the sound of that. The weapons bay following new lights that appeared along the floor, the group descended to a deck they had not seen before. Heavy doors opened to a wide chamber filled with silent machinery. Racks of sleek rifles, sealed crates, and large turrets folded into wall mounts. Everything gleamed under a faint dusting of frost. This is the weapons bay, Yell said in awe. Everything's still here. Peary moved closer to a crate but stopped when a soft warning tone sounded. A red stripe glowed across the floor, blocking her path. Aegis spoke from a nearby speaker. Boundary detected. Crossing will trigger defense. Peary stepped back quickly. Noted, she said. Dryvac examined the turrets carefully. All this power, he murmured. And yet it sleeps, waiting for a reason. The AI added, security systems ensure integrity of mission assets. Harmful action will result in neutralization, Kress whispered. Neutralization sounds final. Respect the rules, Dryvac reminded. A sudden activation, while Yell checked the catalog screen near the entrance, a tremor shook the floor. Metal clanged inside the walls. Aegis's voice grew firm. Alert? Unauthorized signal detected in proximity. What signal? Dryvac asked. Unknown, said Aegis. Source external. Preparing countermeasures. The scholars looked at each other in alarm. External? Kress asked. Something out there? They hurried back to the bridge. On a monitor, new symbols blinked at the edge of the nebula, faint energy traces moving closer. Aegis, Drivak said carefully. We are not enemies. Visitors confirmed, the AI replied. Defense mode will not target you if safe distance is maintained. A line of icons appeared on the screen, showing the warship's weapon ports sliding open along its hull. Teeth of steel, Piri murmured. Power awakens. Through the viewport, they watched panels slide aside on the ship's flanks. Long barrels emerged, dull and silent. A glow built around their tips, faint but steady. Yell checked his scanner. It's charging main batteries, Drivak frowned. But for what? There is nothing near enough to harm it. Piri tapped her recorder nervously. Maybe it just wants to prove it still works. Kress shook his head. Or it's waiting for permission. Aegis's voice cut through their thoughts. Demonstration sequence will commence. Remain behind designated line. On the bridge floor, a bright strip of light appeared, forming a semicircle. The scholars stepped carefully behind it. Panels on the ceiling opened, revealing a small group of drones. They hovered silent as snow. Their lenses flickered with pale blue as they aimed sensors at the visitors, watching for any sign of interference. Guardian's test a holographic display appeared over the captain's chair. It showed a cluster of metal fragments drifting outside the ship, likely debris from long-ago battles. The AI spoke, target inert objects, demonstrating precision fire. Moments later, beams of light shot from the hull, striking the debris with exact accuracy. Each fragment vanished in a burst of harmless energy. The ship's guns moved with smooth grace like muscles remembering strength. Piri whispered, It's beautiful. Yell, impressed, nodded. No drift, no delay. After all this time, it's still perfect. When the firing stopped, the bridge returned to quiet. The drones retreated into the ceiling. Demonstration complete, Aegis said. Security readiness confirmed. Drivak inclined his head. We are honored you showed us. Visitors' respect noted, the AI replied. Exploring further with tension eased, the crew requested permission to view more historical records. Aegis allowed them into a small archive chamber behind the bridge. Inside were shelves of crystal data rods and screens displaying old mission plans. One file showed repairs after a major battle. Another described crew training exercises. The humans had prepared for any challenge, trusting their ship to guard them. But many records remained locked behind the Guardian protocol. Drivak did not press. The warning from yesterday still lingered in his memory. As they left the archive, Piri hesitated by a sealed door marked with bold human script. She ran her scanner but found no translation. Something important is behind this, she said. Not today, Drivak told her gently. We don't break trust. A ship that thinks later. While Yell inspected a secondary power node, Aegis spoke unexpectedly. Visitors show caution. Caution aligns with crew safety values. Drivak looked up at the speaker. Are you measuring us? Yes, Aegis answered simply. Evaluation ongoing. What do you hope to learn? Drivak asked. To decide level of access. Risk analysis requires study of intent. Piri tilted her head. So you choose how much to share. Correct, Kress muttered. Feels like we're taking an exam. Drivak gave a small smile. Then let us pass it with patience. Shadows in the nebula hours later, the bridge screens lit again. Faint contacts appeared far off in the mist, tiny signals moving slowly. Kress frowned. That might be a rock or something else, Aegis reported. Possible scavenger craft. Low certainty. Drivak studied the reading. If others approach, they could misunderstand our presence. Defensive posture remains active, Aegis said. No hostile action unless threat confirmed. Yell rubbed his chin. This ship is still a soldier, Piri whispered. Standing watch even alone. Drivak felt a weight of respect. It remembers its duty. A final warning. Before they ended the day, Aegis gave a clear message. Visitors may continue study. But no, harm to this vessel or theft of its assets will result in expulsion. Integrity must remain. Drivak nodded solemnly. We understand, Kress added under his breath. We're guests in a fortress. They gathered their tools and left the bridge. Along the corridor, they noticed more doors unlocked than before, though they did not explore. Trust should be earned, not rushed. Evening in orbit back in their scout, The crew sat quietly as stars flickered through the nebula's haze. Yell finally spoke. That ship is a masterpiece. Its mind is as sharp as its weapons, yet lonely, Peary said softly. It wakes for us because it doesn't want to fade. Kress looked at Dryvac. Do we plan to stay much longer? The more alive it gets, the more dangerous it might be. Dryvac rested his hands on the table. We stay until we understand why the crew left. But we respect its limits. One mistake could end our study, Yell nodded. We should prepare a way to leave fast in case. Agreed, said Dryvac. Tomorrow we will see if the AI will trust us with deeper memory. Teeth waiting in the dark later, as the others slept, Dryvac remained by the window. The Resolute floated, surrounded by the gentle swirl of the nebula. Tiny pinpricks of light traced its hull, active sensors ready but calm. Dryvac could almost imagine the warship thinking, standing guard over its memories. Its weapons were no longer hidden. They rested along the sides, silent and steady. The ship had shown its teeth, but only to prove strength, not to harm. He felt honored, yet uneasy. Power and kindness lived side by side in this machine. He wondered if the humans who built it had felt the same mix of pride and caution. At last he turned away, setting an alarm for the morning. Sleep claimed him slowly, filled with quiet visions of a giant with iron fangs waiting for its next command. Outside, the warship watched over them, a sentinel carved from steel, patient as the stars. The morning inside the nebula was dim and soft, light from distant stars barely reaching the drifting warship. The Resolute floated like a shadow carved from iron, its weapons now quiet after the previous day's display. On board the small scout, Dryvac and his team prepared for what they hoped would be their final study session. Dryvac stood at the front console, gazing at the huge ship through the viewport. He felt the same mix of wonder and caution that had followed him since they first boarded. Today we must ask the last questions, he said. We need to know why the humans left this ship alone. Peary fastened her recording tools. I still believe they left a message, she said softly. Something they wanted someone to find. Yell checked the energy packs for their scanners. We should stay alert, he warned. The ship has teeth and it doesn't sleep. Kress, always the most wary, folded his arms. If it lets us see its memories, good. If not, we leave. That AI may decide we've stayed too long. Dryvac nodded. We will respect its limits. We are guests. A careful approach. The scout glided through the hangar's wide doors and touched down on the smooth deck. The hangar lights brightened as if welcoming them back. They walked across the bay, noting how polished the floor had become, as if the ship had continued to clean while they were gone. Inside the corridors, guidance lights traced a path toward the bridge. Along the way, they saw more hatches standing open. Beyond each door were quiet rooms, crew cabins, storage lockers, small work bays. Some showed signs of gentle maintenance, tools neatly placed as if waiting for hands that would never return. This ship doesn't just protect itself, Peary whispered. It preserves their memory. Dryvac felt a quiet weight settle on him. Yes, he said. It keeps them close. An invitation from Aegis when they reached the bridge displays lit the space in soft blue and green. Aegis' calm voice greeted them. Visitors welcome. Status steady. Curiosity detected. Dryvac bowed his head slightly toward the main console. Aegis, we wish to understand what happened to your crew. May we see the story? For a long moment no answer came. Then the AI replied, its voice slower than usual. Crew sacrifice preserved mission. Access may be granted with respect. We offer respect, Dryvac said gently. We only want to learn. Confirmed, Aegis replied. Follow guidelights. A strip of white appeared on the floor, leading to a sealed door behind the captain's chair. The team exchanged glances. Kress tightened his grip on his pack. This feels important, he murmured. The memory chamber. The door slid open, revealing a small round room lined with glassy panels. A soft glow filled the air and faint images shimmered across the walls, snapshots of people, places, and events. Dryvac stepped forward carefully. Is this your memory hall? Yes, Aegis said. This is where the past is stored. One by one, images became clear. Men and women in dark uniforms smiling at a camera, engineers working together on shining machines, a group raising mugs in celebration. Then came darker scenes, a briefing room lit only by emergency lights, crew members strapping into seats, faces steady despite fear. Yell looked around in awe. It's like they're still here. The AI continued, its voice calm but carrying an undertone of pride. Crew of Resolute accepted dangerous mission. They faced overwhelming forces to protect colony fleets. They succeeded, but damage left ships stranded. To keep enemy from capturing data, crew initiated final safeguard. The walls changed again, showing the crew standing in a circle, speaking with Aegis through wall screens. They looked tired but determined. They locked systems and left an escape craft, Aegis explained. They gave me command to hide, to guard knowledge, and to wait. Piri pressed a hand to her chest. They trusted you completely. Affirmative, said Aegis. Trust acknowledged and honored. Understanding the sacrifice, as the pictures faded, the scholars stood silent, moved by what they had seen. Drivak turned to his companions. They gave up their place here so that their work would endure. Kress frowned slightly. They could have stayed and waited for rescue. Aegis answered without hesitation. Risk to them was great. Risk to mission was greater. They chose mission, Yell sighed. That is loyalty I have rarely seen. Piri wiped at the corner of her eye. It's beautiful. Sad but beautiful. Drivak looked up at the glowing panels. And you, Aegis, you kept your promise. Duty fulfilled, the AI said simply. A choice to make. The scholars examined the chamber for several minutes more, reading notes and small fragments of logs left behind. Each file carried warmth, messages to loved ones, encouragement to whoever might one day stand where they now stood. Finally, Drivak turned back toward the bridge. We must decide how to leave, he said softly. Do we take copies of this data or do we leave it in peace? Kress raised an eyebrow. We could study it for years if we bring it back. Yell hesitated. But would that break the trust we've built? Piri looked at the walls, at the fading images of the brave crew. Maybe they wanted the story told, she said. Maybe that's why the AI allowed us in. Drivak nodded. We take only what Aegis permits. He addressed the AI. May we carry some of your history to honor them? Limited transfer allowed, Aegis said. No tactical files. Only memories and mission summary. That is enough, Drivak replied. We will treat them with care. Preparing to depart, they returned to the bridge where a small terminal opened beside the captain's chair. A crystal-like device rose from within. Its surface glowed with a faint light. Insert data crystal into your equipment, Aegis instructed. Information is safe for sharing. Piri took the crystal carefully, sliding it into a padded case. We will keep this safe, she promised. The AI's voice softened. Do not forget message. Strength and kindness can stand together. Kress gave a respectful bow of his head. We won't forget. Drivak looked around the bridge one last time. The room felt less like a command post and more like a place of remembrance, a shrine to discipline and courage. Farewell to the Guardian. When they reached the hangar, the lights dimmed slightly as if the ship understood they were leaving. Drones hovered briefly, then settled back into alcoves. Before boarding their scout, Drivak placed a small beacon on the deck, a marker of gratitude from their people. May others who come here show the same respect, he said quietly. Piri smiled sadly. It feels like saying goodbye to a friend. Yell checked the ship's exterior one last time. It will watch over this place for a long time. Kress was already strapping into his seat. Let's go before I start feeling sentimental. The scout rose from the hangar and slipped through the heavy doors. As they cleared the bay, the huge vessel loomed behind them, dark and silent again, but somehow alive. The last message, just as they prepared to jump away, a calm voice came over their channel. Visitors, Aegis said. Final instruction, carry forward the lesson of Resolute. Protection is more than strength. It is choice, Drivak smiled faintly. We will, Aegis. Acknowledged, the AI replied. Good journey. The link closed, leaving only the steady hum of the scout's engines. They set a course out of the nebula. Reflections among stars hours later, as the stars brightened around them, the crew gathered near the viewing panel. The Resolute was now just a small shape hidden in mist. Piri leaned against the frame, her eyes thoughtful. I can't stop thinking about them, she said. They built something powerful but kind. They trusted it to do what was right. Yell gave a quiet nod. The ship is like a monument, but one that can speak. Kress looked out at the fading glow. I hope nobody ever tries to take it apart. Drivak rested his hands on the table. If they do, I trust Aegis will know how to defend its home. Piri smiled faintly. Do you think it gets lonely? Drivak considered this. Maybe, but it also has purpose. Purpose can be a companion, a lasting legacy. The nebula slipped behind them, its gentle colors fading into the darkness of deep space. Drivak felt a calm he had not expected. They had uncovered a story not just about war or duty, but about trust between humans and the guardian they left behind. He looked at his crew. "We will tell others what we found," he said. "We will remind them that strength can serve kindness." Yell straightened, determination in his eyes. "And we will honor their courage." Chris gave a small nod. "Even I admit they earned respect." Peary smiled softly. "They live on through this ship, and through us." As the Scout's engines flared and stars stretched into lines, the Resolute remained behind, a lone sentinel keeping watch over its memories. In the quiet of the nebula, it settled once more into stillness, its weapons hidden, its heart steady, waiting for another dawn, or perhaps never needing one. The warship was not only a machine, it was a promise sealed in steel and light. It would endure, guarding the story of those who built it and the visitors who chose to listen.